Thanks. Thanks to the Revolutionary Student Union for having me. It's great. So, yeah, like Chris said, my name is Josh Sykes. I'm a member of Freedom Road Socialist organization and also an organizer with Students for a Democratic Society at UNC-Asheville in North Carolina. So today, I'm going to give a talk about the economic crisis and the struggle for education rights. Basically, I want to look at what's happened, what this upsurge is, practically what it means, what's going on, go into some of that. And then we're going to talk about where it came from, what were the economic, objective, and subjective conditions that kind of brought it into being. And then I'm going to talk about where do we go from here, like what does the education rights movement need to take up as its slogans and its sort of strategic orientation. So the talk I'm going to give is based largely on articles from Fight Back newspaper, which covers these struggles in depth. Some of them, they're people who write this paper are doing student organizing and SDS chapters across the country, including in California, where the biggest battles have taken place. And so some of the articles are written by those people that I'm drawn from, and other articles, there's a professor of economics in San Bruno, California, that writes for Fight Back, and I'm going to reference some of his stuff. His name is Misao Suzuki. So that's just a nod to my sources. I'm not going to go in and talk about what every little statistic comes from. But so what has happened? The main thing is that people see that there was an education rights National Day of Action on March 4th of this year, in which hundreds of thousands of students on over 100 campuses in at least 39 states in this country participated. One of the demands was that administrators and chancellors should quit raising tuition and fees. Another one was that they cut the salaries of the highest paid administrators instead of the lowest paid staffers on campus. So many of these protests also opposed layoffs. Actions range from walkouts to marches to the occupation of administration buildings. Some of them have brought out real concrete gains. But that said, that's not where this story begins. The economic crisis began towards the end of 2007. That's where it really started picking up. And, I'll talk more about kind of its origin and where it comes from and what it means to people in a little bit. But so in 2008 and 2009, we already started to see some motion on campuses about education rights. And at the beginning of 2009, towards the end of 2008, we saw occupations at NYU and New School University. Students took over buildings on campuses to oppose cutbacks to education. At the City University of New York on March 5th of 2009, students walked out of classes to oppose cuts to funding to education. There have been protests in Arizona. There were big demonstrations where hundreds of students protested at Middle Tennessee State University. Even in some cases, student government, which is normally a pretty reactionary body, has led some protests, some opposition to these cuts, because they're really having deep and widespread effects. So on March 4th, you see campuses like UCLA. UCLA cuts have been really severe. Tuition hikes have been through the roof. Well, I should say fee hikes. UCLA actually doesn't have tuition. It's one of the cool things about the school, but that's changing. Over 300 students staged a sit-in at the administration building, and the way that started is like, a small group of students, get some banners together on the morning, really early in the morning on March 4th before classes start. March all through campus, through the cafeterias, through all the classrooms and all that stuff. And you're like, okay, we're having this protest. It gets bigger, it gets bigger, it gets bigger. Then eventually you have 300 students in a sit-in at the administrator's building. So that's a big one. At UC Davis, police were firing rubber bullets into the ground as students trying to take over the Interstate 80 in a dramatic effort to force the administration to listen to their demands. UC Berkeley had a rally of hundreds and blocked campus's main gates. UC Santa Cruz held a day-long strike, blocking intersections, starting at 5 a.m. and shutting down the university for the day. At the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee, you had a peaceful speak out and march to the chancellor's office, ended up with the police arresting 18 people. And since then, a movement has been built out of that to say, okay, well, look, not only are you slashing our education, but if we say something and speak out about it, you're attacking us directly. So there's a big fight back going there, and those students are in the middle of it, and they need support. So you should pay attention to what's going on at the University of Milwaukee, Wisconsin. At the University of Minnesota, over 400 students, staff, and faculty rallied demanding the administration take a pay cut before laying off thousands of workers, forcing furloughs on faculty and staff, or raising students' already inflated tuitions and fees. After the rally, SDS led a march into the student union and out of the streets under the slogan of fund education, not administration. So, again, there were 100 campuses, 39 states. This is a really small spattering of what happened. It was a big day of action, and it's important, and it's just one part of a movement that started at the beginning of the economic crisis and is continuing now. They're going to, the California stuff came out of a big statewide organizing meeting, and they're going to have another one to follow up with what happened on March 4th and see how to move forward. So, where did it come from? So we have to look at the economic crisis itself and its effects on education. And here, I'm mostly going to focus on California because it's sort of illustrative of the larger problems. So that's where the budget crisis is the most severe and it kind of goes the deepest. So in California, we see that it's fee hikes and furlough days that are mobilizing people. And on top of that, the threat to privatize the University of California system. So California Legislative Analyst's Office announced that the state was facing budget deficits of $20 billion each year for 5 more years. Over the past 15 months, California responded to a total budget deficit of $77 billion with a combination of cuts in spending, increases in taxes on working people, federal economic stimulus monies, and accounting tricks. So this budget cuts have fallen particularly heavily on public education, public higher education, especially in California, especially the University of California, UC system, and the California State University system, which has taken 20% cuts in funding. UC students have been at the forefront of the protests with the UC Board of Regents has decided to hike tuition more than $10,000 a year. And the problem is that students who come there are coming from working class, oppressed nationality backgrounds, and $10,000 of additional fees a year is not what they can afford. So let's see. So in the middle of all this, of cutting spending and raising taxes for working people, the California government has given businesses tax cuts worth almost $2 billion a year. Educational administrators, such as the UC president, Udolph, has a pay package that costs more than $800,000 a year and has a mansion that costs about $300,000 a year to maintain. And he's gotten, in the middle of this crisis, pay increases.